From the News Channel 5 Network, this is SportsLine.
Hey there, SportsLine on your television. Steve Lehman here with you. Glad you are here with us on this Wednesday night on News Channel 5 Plus. Plenty of football to talk about, of course, so our phone lines will be open again tonight, 737-7767, if you'd like to call up and be a part of the conversation. Titans took today off after practicing each of the last 4 days. They had splendid weather for each of those days. Were able to get a lot of work done, but take a day off, then they'll be back at it Thursday, Friday, Saturday, before taking Sunday off and then getting into it next week. And don't forget, the first preseason game at the Jets comes your way next Saturday night, a week from Saturday, so 10 days from now, up in New York. Lots to learn before then. Where is this team at? Through 4 days, here are some of the observations. Marcus Mariota maybe shows a little rust from not being fully integrated in the entire offseason program, but he doesn't show any lingering effects of the broken leg, which is a great sign if you're a Titans fan. He looks like he's ready to go. He looks healthy. He looks strong. That is what you want to see from your quarterback. He can work out the kinks and get into a true rhythm during training camp. So the fact that he showed up was big. Derrick Henry looks bigger and faster at the same time. That is fantastic, because when you play the type of physical smash mouth that the Titans are going to play, you don't want to have to rely only on one back. DeMarco Murray was terrific. He led the AFC in rushing last year. You love having him as your featured back, but Derrick Henry was drafted in the second round for a reason. He's a Heisman Trophy winning running back at Alabama for a reason, and he looks like a guy that's ready for a bigger role this year. Speaking of a bigger role, that'll be the wide receivers. This group looks to be much better than it has been in recent years for the Titans, and I think a big part of that is the addition of Eric Decker. Think about this for a second. Middle of the summer, Titans feel like they have their roster set, and all of a sudden, Eric Decker becomes available on the free agent market. And here's a guy that has 52 career touchdown receptions, 385 catches for his career. He's got a track record. He's got credentials. And all of a sudden, he was on the scrap heap, and the Titans were able to get him. And if you would have asked anybody around the Titans in June, when this happened, around the minicamp, they would have said, we've significantly upgraded the receiver position already. You know, Rashard Matthews is back. Tajay Sharp is back. Harry Douglas is back. And they went out and they drafted Corey Davis 5th overall and Taywan Taylor from Western Kentucky in the 3rd round. They felt like they'd already addressed the receiver room. And then all of a sudden, a guy sitting there like Eric Decker. And if you would have asked them, okay, so you've addressed the receiver room, you feel better about it, I assume, but what's maybe the one thing that you're missing? I think the response would be, well, not knowing exactly what these rookies are on the field with our team yet, we need someone who's going to be a precise route runner, who Marcus Mariota, or the quarterback, will know exactly where he's going to be at all times. We need that type of guy, a veteran leader that will show these young guys exactly the way to do it. Well, that's exactly what Eric Decker is. And so that guy all of a sudden was just sitting out there for John Robinson to sign. And he gobbled him up and brought him in. And through 4 days, he looks like a guy who's been in this system for 4 years. He's a veteran, commands respect immediately. And for the young guys like a Taywan Taylor or Corey Davis, I don't know if you could find a better guy to learn from than somebody who goes about his business in that way and is so precise in his route running. That was something that all the receivers struggled with last year, is having the right depth, being as precise as they needed to be on cuts and on routes. Well, that's what Decker is. That's what he does. That's how he's made his mark in the NFL. and now the Titans have added him. You got a Pro Bowl tight end in Delaney Walker, and seemingly his heir apparent in Jonnu Smith behind him, another third-round draft pick this year. You feel great about the offensive line, given what they did last year and the fact that for the first time in forever, the Titans have all of those guys back. The entire starting offensive line, for now at least, is healthy and back intact. That can go a long way. They've beefed up on the defensive line. Carl Klug's recovery from a torn Achilles last December to on the field in training camp is remarkable. Sylvester Williams gives you a guy to really beef up the middle of the line. Linebacker depth is great, and the secondary completely revamped. I mean, Logan Ryan and Adoree Jackson are going to play. Are they going to be the two outside starters in week 1? We'll see. But those guys are going to play a ton. Ryan especially. Jackson eventually. They're going to play a ton. So those two guys are totally new. They revamp what you do at the cornerback position. And then in the secondary, Kevin Byard, he played a lot last year. He led the secondary in snaps, or at least the safeties in snaps last year for the Titans. Well, now in year 2, he's going to have a ton of responsibility. He's essentially going to be the quarterback of the secondary this year. But you've got a guy moving into his second season. You feel great about him with that experience, with his skill set. You still have Denoris Searcy back there, and you bring in Jonathan Cyprien, a big, thumping, hard-hitting safety that led all safeties in the National Football League last year in tackles with 126 in Jacksonville. He's got a reputation of being a heavy hitter. He's a sure tackler. He's going to help out in big ways against the run, and he's going to see a lot of time on the field. It's a group in that secondary that understands that they have a lot to prove. They finished 30th in the NFL last year in pass defense, tied with the Packers. Only team that was worse was the New Orleans Saints. That's not going to cut it in this day and age when everything goes on the quarterback. You've got to be better than that. And that group knows it. And they've got a chip on their shoulder to prove that better. It's hard to gauge this much because you don't do a lot of it live in training camp in terms of special teams. But just looking at the bodies and the roster, they also should have drastically upgraded the special teams unit from a year ago when they struggled mightily. So that's another area where you should feel like this team is better. It's hard to look at the Titans right now in training camp, and I get that they're going against each other. But it's hard to look at them and think anything other than this is a really good football team. It's hard to identify the big holes or the big weaknesses that they have. And it's also hard to look at just about any position on the field and think that it hasn't been upgraded from where they were a year ago. I mean, even the places where they didn't necessarily make a move, like quarterback. I think most people would like to assume Marcus Mariota will be better in year 3 at age 24 than he was last year, especially with more talent around him. The running back position didn't make a big move there, but you've got Murray, who led the AFC in rushing, and Derrick Henry, who continues to get better and better. It's hard to look at any spot out there on the field where you don't think this looks like a better position group. This looks like a better team than it looked a year ago. And that, to me, is why the excitement in this town seems to be at a high that we haven't seen for quite some time when it comes to the Titans. People are looking out there and they're seeing the talent. They're hearing the hype. And there's reason to believe it. It's not just this is a new year. It's not just this is a draft pick. We believe in it. It is that this team looks better than they were a year ago at every position on the field. And last year's team went 9-7. They narrowly missed the playoffs. And this team looks better. That is why you have so much excitement around this Tennessee Titans team. We'll hear from several Titans players as they get through the first segment. It's not really the first week. They reported on Friday, first practice on Saturday, but the first 4 days of practice on the field. They'll be back out there tomorrow morning. We'll hear from them coming up during the course of this hour. We also want to hear from you guys tonight. 737-7767 is the number. Call us up here on News Channel 5 Plus and be a part of the conversation. Have you been out there to any of the training camp practices? If so, what were your impressions? Are you seeing what I'm seeing? That all of these positions seem to be upgraded, that the defense seems to be drastically improved, especially in the back end from where it was a year ago, and that the wide receivers all of a sudden now seem to be a weapon for this Titans team. What questions remain for you? What do you want to know about this Titans team as they continue here through training camp, gear up towards a first preseason game a week from Saturday night in New York against the Jets? And we can do predictions as well. What is your thought for this Titans team this year? Call us up. 737-7767 is our number. Let's go to Jay. Jay, you're going to lead us off tonight here on SportsLine. Thanks for the call.
Good evening, Steve. Hey, what's the vibe like this year around the training camp? I know you go a lot, and I just wondered how they are from years past, if they're hyped up more than they have been, and what do you think the job Russ Grimm's doing with the offensive line? I'll hang up and listen. Thanks.
Yeah, Jay, I'll tell you this. I think you notice it when you walk in that there's a different vibe and a different feel. And I don't know if that's so much on the players because, frankly, I think every year when you start training camp, no matter what team you are, you have a belief that this year can be different, that this year will be better, and that you're going to be a contender. And so I think generally the players are pretty excited this time of year. And so I don't know if this team is any more excited on the field, but the vibe around the facility is different. It just looks different. I mean, they put $75 million in renovations into St. Thomas Sports Park over the last couple of years. Give Amy Adams-Strunk a ton of credit, because when she truly took over as the controlling owner of this franchise, there were questions whether they, as a family, really wanted to be involved, how much they liked the team here in Tennessee, would they sell it, how long would the team stay here? And when you looked at the facility, it was second rate. It was at the bottom of the league in terms of amenities and space and all of that for players. And you know what? She walked in, she understood that. She's made herself very much a part of this team. She's given John Robinson and Mike Mularkey pretty much everything that they've needed to run it the way they want to make this drastic transformation. And part of that was saying, you know what, if we're going to attract free agents, if we're going to do this in a championship caliber way around here, we have to have a better facility. We have to have a facility that stacks up. And so she has completely poured the money in to revamp the place and make it something that players want to come to, want to spend their time at, and feel like they can get better at. The locker room is spacious and gorgeous. The weight room that was just done for this camp, absolutely fantastic. They've added some other facility stuff for players there. They redid the outside practice fields, new turf in the indoor facility. The bubble is up. It just looks great. And right before training camp, they added a bunch of bleachers around the field. And to talk about the feel, that's a big part of it. These bleachers, especially Saturday and Sunday, when it was gorgeous and it was a weekend and the practices were in the middle of the afternoon, they were packed. The crowd was huge out there for practice. That's different. You get crowds out there. You get autograph seekers out there every year for training camp. But it's in the 1,000 range, I'd say. They were at 2,500-ish for Saturday and Sunday's practices. There's just a different feel and a different vibe out there because of the expectations. I think that is absolutely true. And I think the players feel it as well, and they're feeding off of that hype, just adding into their mojo and swagger coming off of last year when they won 4 of their final 6 games and finished 9-7. To your other question about Russ Grimm, I love what he's done with this team. Now, the talent is there. Taylor Lewan has the talent to be the best tackle in the NFL. Jack Conklin was the best right tackle in the league last year. Ben Jones is a really good, really smart guy to run your offensive line at center. Josh Klein's been around on those Patriots teams. Quentin Spain stepping up early on in his career. Dennis Kelly has been a guy who can move around and play a lot of different places for you. So they've got the pieces now to put them in position to do what they need to do. But I think Russ Grimm's big credit when you talk about this offensive line is he walked in and he simplified things. When Ken Wisenhunt was the head coach, even the offensive linemen had these responsibilities where they'd go up to the line of scrimmage, and depending on how the defense lined up, they had to look and identify the Mike linebacker or the strong safety or something like that. And then depending on how they lined up, that's what you blocked. From talking to some of the guys now, ever since Russ Grimm got there a year ago, basically their job has been simplified. You get there, and when you walk up to the line of scrimmage, your job is to block X or to block Y. And so these guys are walking to the line of scrimmage, and they know already what their assignment is. And that wasn't always the case in the past. And when you have to think like you did before, Taylor Lewan's talked about this a lot. He'd go there and he'd try and be identifying everything, and maybe you weren't exactly sure, and then the ball gets snapped and you're still thinking as opposed to just reacting and blocking someone. Now he knows every time he walks up there exactly what he's supposed to do. And so he puts that hand in his dirt, he knows where he's going, and when the ball is snapped, he can fire off and do his job. And last year with that simplicity, he was a Pro Bowl offensive lineman, a guy that was up and down. In his first couple seasons, was a Pro Bowl offensive lineman last year. Jack Conklin comes in as a rookie in the National Football League. He was an All-Pro. Other guys, everybody else in the offense last year was learning it for the first time. Ben Jones came in free agency. Josh Klein came at the end of training camp from New England. Quentin Spain stepped in after the injury to Byron Bell. These guys were all new, essentially, to the lineup, and they all performed well. And now the big benefit for Grimm and for all those guys on the line is they all know each other. They're back. They understand the system. They understand how they work. They understand how to communicate with each other. That can only be a benefit as they head into this season. And as Lewan told us the other day, we'll maybe hear this coming up tonight, their goal is to be the best offensive line in the National Football League. And that's not a far-stretched statement. They can absolutely be that with the talent and the guys in place if they stay healthy. They want to protect Marcus Mariota week in and week out. And I know that was something for him to be lost in that game in Jacksonville and done for the season with a broken leg. That was something that stuck with those guys throughout the offseason. That they allowed that to happen after everything that they'd done throughout the course of the year. Again, DeMarco Murray's your AFC rushing champion. They take a lot of pride in that, but the fact that Mariota went down with a broken leg is something that's stuck in their craw this offseason and has fueled them to come back now and be even better. And they have that opportunity. Our phone lines are open. 737-7767 is the number. We want to hear from you tonight, so call us up. Give us what you got on the Titans, your questions, your comments. Anything goes here on SportsLine this Wednesday night. We'll also hear from some of those Titans players coming up as we continue on here on the program. Time to take a break. We will come back. More SportsLine on the way here on News Channel 5+.